What I understand, Shedeur Sanders has had a really strong last few weeks of OTAs. I've talked to people with the Browns who said that Shedeur has really impressed them. He's progressing really well. A little bit deeper into that. What does that mean? The biggest thing is they've seen him grow as he progresses down the field as a quarterback.
The Cleveland Browns are walking into mandatory minicamp tomorrow with the biggest quarterback story in the entire NFL. And right now, every signal coming out of Berea is pointing in one direction. Shadur Sanders is leading the depth chart. After weeks of back and forth, after all the noise about Deshaun Watson having the inside track, the most recent reports from people inside that building confirm that Sanders has surged ahead of the competition heading into the June 9th through 11th minicamp. This is not speculation. This is not hope. NFL insider Cameron Wolfe went on the record and said it plainly. And head coach Todd Monken, the man who will ultimately make this decision, has made statements that line up perfectly with what we are seeing on that practice field. Today, we are breaking down everything, because what is happening in Cleveland right now is bigger than just a quarterback competition. It is a statement about the future of this entire franchise.
Monken talked at the combine about being pleasantly surprised about the mobility that Shedeur has, the ability for him to be able to extend plays outside of scheme and make plays when nothing's there. He'll get an opportunity to do that there. And I know Shedeur has been working with his private quarterback coach, Daryl Colbert, on being able to put that foot in the ground and let it rip. That's something that he didn't do as consistently as they wanted as a rookie.
Monken came to Cleveland from Baltimore, where he spent years helping build an offense around Lamar Jackson. He understands what it means to have a dynamic quarterback who can process quickly, extend plays, and make things happen outside structure. He is not a coach who needs his quarterback to fit a specific mold. He needs a quarterback who can execute his system, handle the complexity of his play calls, and perform when it matters most. Every single thing happening in Berea suggests that Shadur Sanders is showing Todd Monken exactly that. Now let us talk about Cameron Wolfe, because his words carry enormous weight in this conversation. Wolfe went on record and told the audience what people inside the Browns organization were telling him. He said, "It is actually pretty wide open." He acknowledged that for much of the early offseason, the narrative was that this was Deshaun Watson's job to lose. But then Wolfe said something that changed the entire framing of this competition. He said that from what he understood, Shadur Sanders had a really strong last few weeks of OTAs, and that people with the Browns had told him directly that Shadur was really impressing them and progressing really well. Those are not the words of someone who is slipping down the depth chart. Those are the words of a quarterback taking over a competition.
They have seen him grow in his processing. And I also heard there's something about him. Aura is a good word, is what I was told there. And so look, do not count out Shedeur Sanders in this race. And I also thought it was interesting. Todd Monken said early on in the offseason he would love to have a decision before training camp.
And the on-field evidence backs that up completely. Throughout the OTA sessions that were open to media, Todd Monken was rotating Sanders and Watson with the first-team unit. That alone is significant. This was not Watson getting all the ones while Sanders worked with the twos and threes. Monken was splitting those reps deliberately, putting both quarterbacks under the same pressure and watching how they responded. And what he saw from Sanders was enough to make him publicly praise the young quarterback in front of reporters. Monken told the media after one particular OTA session that Shadur has really come on, that he thought he had a really good day. He said both quarterbacks continued to compete, but specifically called out Sanders by name when talking about progress and improvement. Reporter Ashley Bastock, who was on the ground in Berea, added even more to the picture. She noted that in any drill where the team was going at full speed, any team drill, it seemed like Shadur was the one going first. But the kid was a fifth-round pick thrown into a broken situation, and he kept competing every single week. He finished his rookie year and immediately said it publicly. He told reporters that this year is the worst it is going to be. He called it a foundation. That is the mentality of a starter. And when you look at what he has done in year 2 of his development, the trajectory is obvious. Mary Kay Cabot, the most respected Browns insider in the business, wrote that Sanders learns best by doing, and the more he took the playbook to the grass, the better he fared. She noted that Monken himself said something illuminating when he stated that he has 2 starting quarterbacks in the room. That is a direct acknowledgement that Sanders is not a backup. He is a legitimate #1 option in the mind of his head coach, and that is a major shift from where the conversation stood just a few weeks ago. What makes Todd Monken's approach to this so fascinating is his stated goal. He said in a perfect world, he would have his starting quarterback and offensive line set by the time they leave Berea on June 11th. He wants the decision made before training camp. He wants that clarity. The problem is that what he has seen from both quarterbacks has been good enough to give him pause. Cabot reported that by the final week of OTAs, Monken began hedging on whether he would have his depth chart set coming out of MiniCamp at all, potentially pushing the timeline further. But here's the thing. If Deshaun Watson were clearly the guy, there would be no hedging. There would be no competition. The hedging is itself a sign that Shadur Sanders is forcing this to be a real conversation. Now, MiniCamp starts tomorrow, June 9th through the 11th. This is the final major evaluation before the team breaks for the summer and reconvenes for training camp in mid-July. Monken has 3 days to watch these quarterbacks under the most intense practice conditions of the offseason. He has already said this is the last important checkpoint before the big break, and based on everything that Cameron Wolfe reported, based on everything Monken has said about Sanders coming on strong in the final stretch of OTAs, Shadur is walking into tomorrow's session with momentum firmly on his side. The broader picture here is about more than just a depth chart decision. This is about what Todd Monken actually believes can get the Cleveland Browns competitive again. He is not a coach who was brought in to manage a transition. He was brought in to build something. And after the Myles Garrett trade sent a message to the entire league that Cleveland was shifting toward youth and the future, the quarterback situation is the next domino to fall. You do not trade away your greatest defensive player of the last decade just to hand the ball to a veteran on the final year of a dead contract. The organization is telling you the direction they are heading. Monken is smart enough to read that room and smart enough to know that Shadur Sanders, at 24 years old, with the work ethic he has shown since arriving in Berea, represents the future of this franchise far more than anything else on that depth chart. Cleveland has not had a Pro Bowl caliber quarterback since Derek Anderson in 2007. The franchise has cycled through more quarterbacks than any other team in the NFL over the past 2 decades. Every single year, there is a new name, a new hope, and a new disappointment. Shadur Sanders is not the answer simply because he has survived that cycle. He has to earn it. But what Cameron Wolfe told us, what Todd Monken has said on the practice field, and what every credible reporter in Berea has observed over the past 3 weeks of OTAs all points to the same conclusion. Shadur Sanders is leading this depth chart right now. MiniCamp starts tomorrow, and for the first time in a long time, Browns fans might actually be watching something real take shape in Berea.